All right, my friends, we are learning Dvar Malchut. This is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991. And it's talking about the number 90, and it's especially talking about because it was the 90th year, the 90th. The Rebbe was 90 years old, so the Rebbe was going into his 90th year, and that also in Chabad we read the psalm that's relevant to our age every day, right? So if you're like 13 years old, so you read Psalm 14 because you finished 13 years, now you're going into your 14th year, right? When do you have your birthday? When you finish. When does the child have his first birthday? When he finishes his first year, finishes. But that whole first year, you say, if the baby could read, he would read Psalm number 1. So the Rebbe was 89. He's going into his 90th year. So he said 90. So the Rebbe explained that 90 in Hebrew is TZADIK. And TZADIK is Tzad Yud. Tzad Yud. And sometimes it's Tzad Yud Kuf. Sometimes it's pronounced Tzadi. Sometimes it's Tzad means that every human being, especially the Jewish people, we have two sides. One side is the worldly side, the normal side, and the other side is the godly side. Which side do we take? Yud, the side of God. That's the idea of a tzaddik. And that's the whole thing of Moses. That Moses, he took the side of God and he brought it into the world. We'll see that Lakuf represents going into the world. We'll see. Now, again, I just want to stress everybody and remind everybody, what we're talking about God here, we're not talking about some big man sitting on the throne. The Torah cannot be taken too literally. What happened in the Torah is true. God did speak. God did create the world. God made the flood. God cares. This makes God mad. This makes God mad. Okay, but there's much more to it than that. Right? It doesn't say in the Torah that God is creating us right now. It doesn't say. It doesn't say that God cares about us, that he provides for us right now. Doesn't say. It doesn't say that he provides for us. It doesn't say that he cares for us. And it says that God created the world a long time ago. He created the world. It doesn't even say when he created it, clearly. When he created it. Some people say, well, back then a year was like 1,000,000 years and it was light change and time warps and things like that. So some things you do have to take literally in the Torah. One of them is when God created the world. In fact, he did create the world. If you count the ages of everybody, he created the world 5,783, and just a few days is going to be 1.5 years ago. And there was such a person as Abraham, there was such a person as Isaac, there was such a person as Adam, right? God really did create the world. But the fact is that God is creating me and you right now, and he's creating everything right now. So God has jumped out of the Bible, jumped out of the library or the synagogue into everywhere. God is creating me and you and everything. There's nothing more real than God. Nothing more real. God is a religious figure, but is much more real than that, right? The God is creating your screen. You're watching a screen now. That's religious. What's it got to do with religion, right? God's creating the air that you breathe. He's creating the nose that's breathing it. He's creating your soul. God is creating everything. That doesn't make any sense, but it's true. And even more doesn't make any sense that God cares. He cares about all of his creations. And of course, you can say, how much pain there is in the world, there's difficulty with it. That's a good question. It's a good question. But the fact of the matter still remains a fact. That's what we're talking about, to feel this incomprehensible, imperceptible fact that God is creating us and that God cares about us and God loves us and he reacts to what we do. And therefore, there has to be at least one person in the generation that really does feel this truth, and he can be an example for everybody. And he can teach everybody what it means, how this is accessible to everyone. Okay, that's the idea of Hasidut, to fill the whole world with the awareness of God, of how good God is. And what happens when you feel God? What happens? The world is the same exact world. But there's nothing, beams of light don't start shooting from your head or something like that. You're the same, you have the same family and the same job and the same this, but first of all, your attitude is different. And also everybody's attitude is different. And because of that, everything changes. The whole world changes. It becomes a positive world. People want all this decadence and this obsession with sex and with power and with money and with crazy stuff. Okay. So that's the idea of a tzaddik. So it says adayin, but adayin, never still tzorech lahavin. We have to understand. We have to understand. What do we have to understand? Amor, like we said before, Meduber is talking about the service of tzaddik. Tzaddik, the hamshech, namely to draw down, to reveal godliness, the chelik harishus, in the what's called the mundane part of the world, not only in the holy temple, in everything in the temple, but teva, in nature, in the nature of the world. That nature of the world is the same ha teva. Nature is the same numerical value as Elohim, as God, Elohim, as 86. Even though malim alalakus, even though the nature hides over God, but nature does not oppose God. Nature doesn't have any free will. People have free will, they can oppose God. But nature does not oppose God. It just hides over God. Right? You look at a beautiful sunset, you say, wow, that's just something really beautiful. That's just something amazing. Right? Somebody says, that's God, that's the creator. What are you talking about? That's the creator. It's the aberration of sunlight in the atmosphere when the sun is truly sunk already. Did you know that? But when it goes through the light, so it aberrates. That's Newton had something to do with it. God's got nothing to do with it. Right? So that's what it means. On one hand, nature hides God. Sometimes you could say, no, nature reveals God. But nature does not oppose God. Right? If a miracle happens, you don't say, well, what about what's his name? The theory of relativity, Darwin. What about Darwin? Darwin proved that man comes from an ape, right? What are you talking about, God? It was a theory. He had a theory. All of science is just theories. The essence of science is that if you can disprove something, then you have to stop using it. Then it's not true. Huh? You don't believe it. They used to believe there used to be ether. There was some sort of ether, and they basically proved that there's no ether, or you can get along very well without ether. So that's it. Nobody believes in ether. It used to be that the sun goes around the moon goes around the sun. Doesn't make any difference. Science is there for practicality. Practical. As soon as it becomes impractical and it doesn't work, then it's not science anymore. It's not true. It's not truth. Right? It's not truth, which is not the case Judaism. Judaism is sometimes very, very impractical. I mean, that's what Zionism is based on, that it's not practical to be a religious Jew. It's not practical. If you throw away Torah and you throw away the commandments, God forbid, and you throw all then that's practical. Right? But being religious is not practical. So what's the answer to that? The answer is, first of all, it's not true. We can see that a person is supposed to be practical and he's also supposed to believe in God. But let's say the fact is that the Germans come, the Nazis come and say, we're going to kill everybody who's a Jew, right? And when Haman came and said, I'm going to kill everybody who's a Jew. It's not practical to say you're a Jew. But nevertheless, there were Jews that said to the church, that was maybe the best example of all. The Nazis didn't give a person a choice, but the church gave everybody a choice. They said, we're going to kill everybody who's a Jew, the Inquisition. And there were Jews that said, I'm a Jew. I'm not going to deny I'm a Jew. It was totally impractical, right? Totally impractical. And that's called truth. To reveal the truth of godliness in the world, the truth should be revealed, and it also should be practical. Because that's the of tzaddik. We have to reveal godliness in the world, because the whole thing in the world is by means of bringing ish elokim, by means of bringing godliness into what Moses did. Moses was the ish elokim, human being in this world, and elokim, we said, was nature. Harizeh mitkabel gam begidrei olam. We want that Moshe, who we said was the essence of God, should be integrated into the world. Elokim is nature, and Ish is a human being that has free choice to go against God if he wants to. Aval b'kasher omrim shekol olam. When we say that the whole world has to be a dwelling place for God, diras keva move, and it's understood in Cain, shelo yochlu lashe'er, pina, that can't remain even a corner in the world that's against God. Right? When God took the Jews out of Egypt, so he revealed himself in the world, but it didn't last. And not only that, it was only in a certain place. We want to reveal God everywhere in the world because everything is being created by God. If there's anything that doesn't reveal God, then there's a little hole, like a little tiny hole in a balloon or something. So, how is it in our power to make shetzad keneged, that the opposite of God can be a place for godliness? Therefore, tzurich lomar, we have to say that by means of the tefillah l'Moshe ish Elokim, that's Psalm number 90, the prayer of Moses. We said Moses, he was drawn from the water. That's from the essence of God. Comes into Elokim, which is nature, and even to Ish, into human beings, and even to us, shenoten et koach, that God, through this prayer of Moses, that God gives the power to draw godliness into the world. Harizem Megia, this reaches to the lowest levels, there's nothing below it. And it can transform even the lowest aspects of godliness to godliness. Yeshlomo, we can say that this is also hinted at, that sometimes the word tzaddik is read tzadi, and sometimes it's written kuf tzadik. Tzadik, the letter kuf, that goes down the letter, the foot of the tzaddik, that goes down below the line, like we said before. Al Pirush, that's what it means. We said before that Moses, we said before in we said paragraph number 6, we said that Moses was because of that Moses is called Moses because he was drawn from the water. Romans, this indicates on the revelation of the name of God. It's above the world. Alma Discasia, the concealed world, is Nishalad or Akusha. We can ask a simple question. Mayim, water, then them. Moshe, that Moses was drawn out of the water, and we're saying that in this case, the water represents his spirituality, the essential levels of God that's concealed from everybody, like water conceals everything in it, is Hoya Mea Nilus. Moses was drawn out. The water that Moses was drawn out was not such a holy place, like we're trying to say. Moses, that he was drawn out of this holy essence of God, that's called the water because it's so high, it conceals everything. But in fact, where was Moses drawn from? From the Nile River. Nile River, it says, Tasim Basuf al Safat Ayar, that his mother put him in the reeds on the edge of the sea. Where do they got this thing? It's called the Red Sea. I don't really know where it came from. Is it a misspelling? Because it should be the reed sea. Suf means the reeds, like a marsh or something like reeds. Just like Michelangelo made the mistake that it says Quran Orso, he made horns on Moses' head. I don't know. In any case, this connects to the idolatry of Egypt, and also Davka bat Paro, and Paro was the king, the daughter of the king of Egypt, and Egypt, it says, was the lowest place in the world. It says Hotzio at Moshe, I mean, she was the one that took him out of the water. So what are we saying? That Moses was, this word Moses shows that Moshe, he was drawn out of the water. The water represents the essence of God, and that God pulled him out of the water. He says, what are you talking about? Look in the Bible and see what it says over there. The water was not holy. It was the Nile River, which was it was an idol. One of the chief idolatries of Egypt, they worshiped the Nile River. Even though it says that Paro every morning he would go into the river to unite with his God, he would go to the bathroom over there because he said he wanted to show that he was also God, and gods don't go to the toilet. So anyway, figure that one out. Anyway, that was the fact. They worshipped Paro, they worshipped the idol, could be, they worshipped also the excrement from Paro, could be. It makes sense. There was the fact is there was an idolatry where they worshipped excrement. There was Baal Peor. Says they would take laxatives, they would go to the bathroom. Anyway, not that it's the disgusting thing. The world is a pretty disgusting place when it comes down to it. Anyway, Moses was drawn out of the Nile River. He was drawn out of the Nile River, which was an idol, and he was drawn out by the daughter of Paro. Paro himself was an idol, and he drew down, and who took him out? His daughter. So how is Moses, how do we get that water is holy and Moses was drawn out of this holy essence of God, right? He was drawn out of the opposite. But Karlo Moshe was called Moses because he was drawn out of the water. Which water? He was drawn out of this idolatrous water. Davkal Shem Zehu Nikri is called this. Even though that it says that Moses had 10 names, huh? It says the 10 names. People always tell him, my name is Tuvia, so I'm always told, oh, my name is Tuvia. That was one of the names of Moses. Moses had other names. Why call him this name Moshe? Why? Kate said, Matim, how is it fitting? We should forget about this terrible name. That was from his past. We shouldn't remind a person of his terrible past. Moses has that terrible past. He was drawn in, his parents, his mother threw him into the idolatry, a Nile River. And he was drawn out of the Nile River by the daughter of Paro. Was also, that's why his name is Moses. We should forget that. It was drawn out. How can we even say that this river represents the essence of God, the concealed levels of it? The explanation is like this. Here, Notenet, this is exactly the point. Call a gavoa of yoser, everything which is higher, nofel lamata mata yoter, it can come down lower more. In order to get the godliness which is above the creation, zukukim davka, you have to go to Beit Paro. To refine even the lowest levels. Now, don't get this thing wrong over here. Don't think that, oh, I should do sins. That was what I don't really want to mention his name, but I guess for the sake of learning, you can. There was Shabbatai Tzvi, of cursed memory. And Shabbatai Tzvi, that's what he did. He read the Zohar and everything, but he was not such a high person, spiritual person. He was a fun-loving person. He understood ideas of Kabbalah and whatever like this, and he was a bit of a mathematician or something. Who knows what? And he was a spiritual person, but he was not a godly person. He was a spiritual person, and he was a charismatic person. And he drew all these people with his charismatic ideas, and he said, "We are elevating the lowest of the low, and we're elevating it to the high." So they made blessings, and they did sins. They did these things that they're trying to get the kids to do in American schools now, all these sins, and he did these terrible sins, sexual sins mostly. So it's true, you have to come down low, but you have to be very, very high, and that's what Moses was. The higher that he is, he could transform what was below. Ukamarun was, like it says, that there was her name, the daughter of Paro was called Bat Yabatia. She was a bat, a daughter that receives from the two first letters of God's name, Yah. It says that Paro's daughter was called Batia. Ulamayla Mishem Avaya. This is even higher than the name of God. Shehu Totsi, that she took Moses from the place of idolatry. She was able to do it. And by means of this, there was revelation of Minamayim Mishisiyu, that Moses revealed the purpose why there is evil in the world. He transformed it. The revelation of Moses from the concealed world into the revealed world. According to this, that's ideally the idea of Moshiach. That's why Moshiach can get us into so much trouble also. Huh? We see there's 2.5 billion people in the world that believed in this Jew that said he was the Moshiach, and they're sinners. I mean, they're not guilty. They're not going to burn in hell or anything like that. But on the other hand, those who make trouble for the Jews definitely are going to burn in hell. There's no doubt about it. But most of them are just honest, truthful people that have been fooled by their preachers. But nevertheless, that's the idea. Mashiach can bring a lot of trouble into the world. It's a tremendously high idea, and if it's taken wrong, then it can be brought. But on the other hand, it's necessary. It's a thing can't be done without. Mashiach is the goal of all mankind. According to this, so we can say that Moses was, but Teva was in this little box that his mother put him in a box, a Teva, besov in the reeds on the edge of the sea, besmichos lamokom, in a place right next to idolatry, and even below that, what Moses says, that Moses was an ish Elokim. The bottom part of it was an ish, and that was, but at least it was a human being. It wasn't idolatry. His mother put him so close to idolatry. But he was saved by means of this box. So you saw Teva. We can say that the box was open from above. Zotamer, what does it mean? She didn't close him in an airtight box. That Moses, when he was in this Teva, It wasn't like the Teva of Noah. The Teva of Noah was closed, even though it also had an opening, it says in the side. But Teva, Hayagilui Kalapi Shamaya. It was revealed to the heaven. Ubiyoto Sham Rata I saw Filu Biyoto Adayan Patparo Imo Shechina. Even when Moses was in the Nile River, which is an idolatry, and nevertheless, the box that he was in was open to above, and people could see, you could see that the Shekhinah, God's presence, was with Moses. And afterwards, afterwards, he was drawn out from the river. Who took him out of the river? The daughter of Paro. The daughter of Paro. In other words, the evil started to become transformed. And who brought him up? This is the most amazing paradox of all. Paro decided to kill all of the children, the male children. He even killed the Egyptian children, killed all of the children that year. That year, he was told by his astrologers that there's going to be born a child and he's going to take over. He's going to take over your throne. So he said, okay, every child born this year, we're going to kill him. And Moses' mother knew that there was going to be a decree, and that the Paro had his soldiers and his secret police all over Egypt looking for children that cried. If they were a child cry, they would take him and kill him. So she put him in the river. And Paro's daughter drew him out from the river and brought him into the nest. Who fed Moses? Who brought Moses up? Paro. The very same Paro that was afraid of Moses, that he was doing anything he could to get him killed, made himself an enemy of all the people, was killing all the children. He brought up, not only just let Moses live and Moses hid away, he actually brought Moses up every day, brought him up in his house, protected him. This gave Moses the power that he was able to break afterwards the clip of the power of evil and the idolatry of Egypt, Israel, and to redeem the Jewish people from there. The Nimsa, so it comes out that in this prayer, Tefillah LaMoshe, the prayer of Moses, Ish Elokim, Psalm number 90, Kolel, there is all these three things. What three things? But Nosafling in the Ish Elokim, in addition to the fact that Moses was a man of God, revealing God in the creation, and Moshe, that he was even above the creation, he was connected to the essence of God. But there's hinted at a third thing, Avoda, the Birur Tachton. This is also hinted at refining the lowest worlds, that there's nothing below them. Yesh Lomo, we can say that how we see this, this is hinted at Tefillah LaMoshe. It's a prayer of Moses, like it's explained in Chassidus. It says this is the Tefillah, this is the 10th prayer, which is connected to the essence of God. Tefillah's Asher, I'm sorry, made a mistake. That this is the prayer of the rich man. So there's what's called Tefillah La'oni, the prayer of the poor person, and then there's Tefillah's Asher, of a rich person. This is attached to God's essence. Shalamayla Mihavaya, this is above the name of Yud Ke Vav Ke, above the name of Elokim. Mechaber, that can join both of them together. This is the power of God's essence, which is above what we call this, that God surrounds the world, like we just finished learning in the Kuti Torah. This is totally above anything in the world. This is drawn down godliness in the whole entire world and everything in it, until the lowest levels, that there can't be anything below it. That's the tefillah, that's the prayer of the rich person, Moses, that he wanted to draw godliness into everything in the world, like it will be in the completion, in the future redemption. What's going to be in the future redemption of Moshiach? What's going to be? Truth. The world will see the result of all of the work and suffering and prayers and efforts and tears and frustrations of the Jewish people in serving God all these years. How Jews were willing to give their lives, and how the Jews stood against Paro and against the Haman and against the church and against Stalin and against the Nazis and against all these people, and how they held on to the Judaism through all this, right? It'll all be revealed. All this energy will be revealed. That's going to be, and it'll affect the whole world for good. God will remove all in impurity from the world. For lo yeh sham lo milchama, there won't be any more wars. Lo yeh esek kol olam. All this is the language of the Maimonides. The world will only want to know God alone. Hagili vayayi noam Hashem Elokeinu. That's how it starts up. May the pleasantness of God be on us. Alma the Asi in the future world, which is called Noam, the pleasantness that's called pleasant, the essential pleasure of God that God received from all of our service. That all of the deeds that we've done will be permanent. It'll be permanent in this physical world. That's how the psalm ends. According to this, let's see, 1 second, how long this is. One moment, give me a moment here. Yeah, we'll finish this tomorrow. Good. Okay, let's go. Let's just do one more. According to everything we said, now we can understand why it is that Moses, he is the redeemer of the Jewish people, why Moses took them out of Egypt. Moses is Goel Rishon, he's the first redeemer, he'll be the last redeemer. Even since the Moses being the level of Moses, Ish Elokim, because Moses was the level of tefillah, prayer, bringing it into the world. Moses from the essence of God, Elokim, in the essence of God, into nature, and even into Ish, into people. Excuse me. Yesh b'kocho, he has the power to draw down the geula, the future redemption. And if you remembered, we learned in previous classes that the word geula is not a big change. The world will remain as it is, gola, the exile. We'll just put an aleph into it. We just turn the lights on. Giloi koach hevle obligable. I'm sorry, revealing the power of infinite power of God, which is in the world. That the God who is infinite is creating every rock, every tree, every bug, every this. God's creating the whole business constantly. The essence of God will be revealed everywhere. The goal at Bnei Israel to redeem, take the Jewish people from all of their limits and all of their boundaries, ad gam until the klippa v'azvodah zorah, and even to transform the idolatry of Egypt. Bekoach zeh will be also in the future redemption also. Like it says by the prophet Micha, it says, just like back then when you left Egypt, I will show you miracles. Not just natural miracles like splitting of the sea and things like that, like the name Elokim, but also miracles which are totally above nature, things that we have no idea what they are. Unfortunately, the way the world is now, we don't really know what good is. We don't really know what good is. We don't appreciate good. People don't appreciate anything. People don't appreciate. You have to really work to appreciate, right? To say thank you to someone, to say to appreciate a sunset, to appreciate a nice looking flower, a child, to appreciate things, to help people, to this, to appreciate life, right? Now there's a huge drive in the world. I mean, I hate to keep mentioning it, but it shows that the world is any second, all the evil is coming out, all the pus is coming out. This woke movement is just showing, don't appreciate anything. Don't appreciate life. Don't appreciate, just have fun. Just have a good time, and you're never going to have enough. You have to convince everybody else to be decadent, to be this, and to not appreciate. You're the boss. No one's giving you, right? I wonder what they do when somebody sneezes. You can't say, God bless you. What do they say? I don't know. Don't appreciate anything. But the geula that will be afterwards, everyone will be filled with appreciation. By the way, that happens to be the essence of the word Jew. The word Jew is Yehudi. Yehudi comes from Hodaya, giving thanks. Essence of a Jew is to give thanks and to teach people to give thanks to God. And this will be a redemption there is not going to be after it any exile anymore. But often Shekala Olam, that the world will be a dwelling for God, a dwelling, a set dwelling, eternal dwelling. There won't be one boring moment. Every second will be a challenge, and we'll feel empowered to raise the world and make a new type of harmony without any limit. We'll feel beauty and happiness and love and awe that we've never experienced before. And the main thing, gratitude, that God is creating us that we can appreciate all this thing. As we will continue, God willing, and we'll finish tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, right? Tomorrow is Friday, and we'll finish this tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning. Now let's go and learn the Dvar Malchut and there will be a story. Story today, story time. 1 second.